All right, hey everybody. All right, so I am going to start off doing my live broadcast in a couple of minutes here, and this is something I'm going to try differently now from what I was doing beforehand. Beforehand, I would try to do a video, edit them when I'm working with someone's dogs, and of course, it's hard to tell what's going on because what I'm doing is it's occurring quite quickly. So then I decided to do live vlogs, and I'm just not that great at doing live vlogs and talking. So now I am going to just do real-time descriptions of what's happening with dogs. So here you have Minky. If you check out my my description, you'll see that Minky is from Animal Hope and Wellness Foundation. He's considered the worst dog out of over 20,000 dogs that they've rescued. So he's extremely dysfunctional, stress defecation, all those other aspects of behavior. You'll see the videos where he was in LA and nobody in LA could work with him, and they know Cesar Millan and all that stuff, and so nothing was happening for them. And they were facing the very real possibility of having to kill Minky because of behaviors. So I'm going to just bring up Sammy here. Sammy is here. This is my little Sammy girl. She's from Taiwan. She has no legs on the back. So I'm just going to hold her for a little bit, and then I'm going to try to get some animation into the conversation so I can get David out. He's in the bedroom right now, and he's kind of sleeping, and all the other dogs are here. So I'm going to bring up a bit more animation, and then eventually he'll come out, or else I will have to create a bit of a contrived environment where I'm going to knock on the door so he comes out. And then we'll get an engagement, and then I will start talking about the functional sentience and the process of fantastical constructive behavior when dogs are playing tug-o-war, playing with a stick. These are aspects where the dog, your dog, is thinking of things. So I'm going to put Sammy down here. Here's Sammy. So we have Lincoln there behind her, and then we have over here is William. So Lincoln is declared dangerous by animal control for attacking dogs because he got attacked, the usual stuff. Minky, as you know, and then William is from Mexico. David is the one that I want to show you guys because he was on 750 milligrams of trazodone since the age of 6 months. He was 2.5 months, 2.5 years old. And he was also on 80 milligrams of Prozac. So quite a bit of profound issues that were happening for him. And so they had him on for 2 years. He's almost 200 pounds, 38 inches at the wither. So his shoulders is a pretty significant dog. And he's extremely dangerous. So what I'm going to talk about is what is fantastical sentient construct in my perspective and what I do. And again, I work with extremely dangerous dogs that try to kill people. And it's quite risky. So what is it defined as? I'm going to go over that, as well as I'm going to break it up into 3 parts about fantastical sentient construct, put it together, and then it'll lead towards the aspect of codependent behavior that dogs have. So I'm going to bring it to that part, and then I'll talk about tug-of-war, and then just dealing with the immediate issues now, and then afterwards, in the next session, the next live session, then I'll talk about how to recognize those signs. Throughout this whole live, you may see things happening, shifts happening where a dog gets kind of unhappy, one of them, and some situations may arise. So I'll try to deal with that. But I'm going to stand up a bit when I talk, and I'm going to talk about the tug-of-war. And maybe what I can do is I can get William out to come out and play if he is not going to sleep all the time. William. He just heard me there. Okay, so so what I want to say, and I'm going to talk a little bit louder because I'm away from the laptop. When it comes to the fantastical aspects of working with dogs, we want them to. I was just going to sit down because they're not going to get up tonight, and I don't want to be traipsing all over the place. What it is a fantastical aspect. The definition itself is to make things up. So therefore, it is an aspect where your dog understands who they are as an individual. So they're able to actually fantasize about something happening when they're with an individual that they're playing with, or on their own when they're playing with a stick. So if your dog is playing with tug-of-war, and they're shaking their head and they're bringing the toy to you to play every time, that's a deliberate behavior on your dog to codependently interact with you. So the codependency is an identification of one's self-ego. Your dog feels, oh my gosh, I'm alone. I want to go and do something. I want to be with my human. I want to create a codependent relationship at that time. So I'm going to develop a manner of communication, which sometimes is kind of difficult for your dog to communicate with us because we're verbal, they're nonverbal. So they're expecting us to know what we're going to do as well as know what they're doing because they're paying attention to our verbal cues. So they're going to assume that we're paying attention to their verbal and nonverbal, primarily nonverbal cues 98% of the time. We want them to know that. Those are aspects of self-awareness. When your dog knows what they want to do, when they're not worried, and then when I'm talking about dysfunctional dogs that are extremely dangerous, but when your dog knows what they want to do, that's the most important part about them understanding who they are, self-esteem, and as an ego. Now, the thing is, a lot of people are going to say, well, dogs don't have this level of consciousness that you're talking about, and that's correct. Dogs have that sophistication at this point in time in evolution, but they have the capacity to expand out and to round out their existing ability to process emotional and or psychological events and learn to not only tolerate, but to self-regulate and to self-soothe. Just like anyone else, if you've seen a dog get upset at another dog and they don't fight and both dogs walk away, because they're able to not just self-regulate and self-soothe, but to make a conscious decision to disengage. These are behaviors that are self-protective, which is, again, relational to the aspect of ego and interpretation of ego. So it's a point where therefore I am comes before who am I? Because you can't ask who am I in relation to my humans. Your dog can't ask who they are in relation to their humans, but they have to at least understand who they are. And once they understand who they are and what their value is within the family, then it carries over to how they are as an individual and how they perceive themselves. And that is where dysfunction happens. If your dog feels insecure or they have self-confidence issues, insecurity, or they're just overall introverted, that will then continue into a point where your dog can no longer deal with things because the psychology, the dysfunction is too complicated for them to process because they have never had that type of experience for. So they can't deal with something if they've never dealt with it previously, which means that they will just then automatically default to what I call emergency power worth of emotions, where they get basically just core line behaviors. And we know people who have gotten really upset that just lose it over simple things. And that's the same aspect for your dog, is that they're not able to process. Everything is about dysfunctional dogs, of course. And that's where I focus on. The other part is, let's just see here. Okay. The other part is when you're doing play tug-of-war with your dog, you can tell if there's an issue going on. You can tell if you're paying attention to your dog's behavior, whether or not they're getting frustrated. You can tell by the physical behavior, if it's very tight, if it's loose, how they're feeling, and that will then advise you on what frustration or what level of communication they're trying to do with you. And in the beginning, it's hard to tell. So, hopefully through all this part here, I'll be able to engage. When that happens, I'll engage with William. He'll get animated. Then David will come out. Minky will get upset and start growling. This is natural behavior because, again, it's hard for Minky to process all the emotions. He's not used to it because he was born in a wire cage on a meat dog farm and lived there for a year and a half. So quite traumatized, going to prison. So what will happen is Minky will get upset, start growling. He can hear me. He'll get upset. David will come out, seeing what's happening, and then there's conflict between David and Minky. So hopefully there's not going to be anything specifically extravagant that occurs, and then I'll be able to just identify things. So what we want to do is we want to understand the fact that dogs are sentient. So being self-aware roots from self-preservation. It's the aspect of protecting oneself from injury, not death. Death is an abstract concept that we as a higher level of intelligence comprehend in real time and premeditatively, but for dogs, animals, they don't understand that, other than the fact that they understand that it is an association of intense pain and emotional and psychological stress in the event that they're injured. So the self-preservation comes from the, again, sense of who they are. Same thing on my end. If I'm not going to touch a hot stove because I know I'm going to get burned. Your dog learns that aspect of, I don't want to get hurt, I don't want to get caught, I don't want to get in trouble, because one, I can be physically hurt, and or two, I can be emotionally hurt. And in cases of dogs being severely abused, 100% the case. So wanting to play is a part of dependencies, right? We have codependent, interdependent, and interdependent. And we want our dogs to have a high a healthy level of codependency where that they come back whenever they have any issues to rely upon us, like a child, but with some autonomy and independence, and of course, comprehension of perspective that dogs are predators. So we want them to understand that they can be protected with us. So I'm a huge proponent, and I will always encourage people to give their dogs hugs. So if you hear anybody who says don't give your dog a hug, then these are people who don't know what they're talking about, because they root from the fact that they're afraid. So we want them to understand that, you know what? If you let your dog understand that when they're scared, your dysfunctional dog that's afraid, that's aggressive or skittish, when they're afraid, to be able to let them understand that you can protect them by giving them a hug, by giving them calmness, then you can extrapolate that from the hug to a point of where you can just touch them and say their name weeks or months down the road through consistency of training. Then your dog understands, oh, okay, great. I hear the voice. I feel the calmness of the touch. And that's a different topic that we'll talk about another time. So you want to look at the level of codependency, which is as similar as that as a child. And as a toddler child in that perception, but again, with a diluted perspective. So you're trying to, it's not like the looking through, beer glasses where you're trying to see how intoxicated, if you can drink and drive kind of thing, those things of that. It's a fact of scaling the perspective diluted in the sense of the simplicity. So it's not like adding extra cans of water to orange juice. It's literally the fact of looking through the transparency or the opaque or lack of opaqueness of what your dog is seeing. In other words, how they process a thing at a very rudimentary level. Kind of like somebody with some cognitive issues. It's how they perceive things. So that's how dogs are going to perceive aspects of their environment and the circumstances. Okay, and then when it comes to jumping and mouthing, because that'll usually happen if you don't continue playing with your dog, or you're playing Tug-O-War and they get a little bit excited, they start Tug-O-War and they want to get animated and all that stuff. So what we want to do is we want them to understand that when you're finished playing, you just basically not overdo it, but you also recognize the fact that when they're getting anxious, that if you don't bring them down and finish the playtime, that they'll get more and more upset and they start to mouth, they start to jump, and you want your dog to understand, you know what, don't do that, it's just not cool, and I'll show you a very simple way to deal with it when that happens. The other aspect of fantastic construct, sentient construct, is the aspect that your dog and all dogs playing with toys and all that stuff are just intelligent at their level of sophistication through evolution. So a lot of times people will say my dog's dumb or these other denigrating statements. You got to recognize, compared to us, of course your dog is dumb, but to your dog, they're at the most optimal level of processing and intelligence that they'll ever have. When your dog, and another thing is, if your dog ever gets too anxious or starts playing like the jumping and mouthing, it's because your dog is taking things further than what you have gently and firmly let them know is enough. So often when they start playing with you and start jumping around, you'll start getting gnawed at and all that. If you're screaming and yelling, you're going to bring back an illicit predator instinct prey drive. Your dog is just going to go, oh my gosh, wow, you're still playing with me. This is awesome. And they'll continue to jump and mouth. So what we want to do is we want to calmly bring your dog down to a gentle point. So I'll get these guys up eventually. I'm going to get William to come up, like I say, because he doesn't really get to play very often. But we want to be able to let your dog understand that our communication with them is nonverbal. Your dog, if you aggregate everything they say in a day, it's less than 2%. It's less than 2 minutes of what they're saying all day. So they're paying attention 98% of the time of what we're saying in our physical behavior, our actions, our nuances. So when I talk to people, I talk a lot. When I'm with my dogs, I use just a minimal amount of conversation that's contextually relevant so your dog can process on a cognitive level. If you don't think that's possible, you'll be able to see these dogs extremely dangerous, and I'm able to down train them without using medication or treats, no training aids whatsoever, by truly understanding the conscious behaviors that are being exhibited at that root psychological level. I've worked with CEOs of multinationals. I've worked with people on the electric car company that everyone knows. The issue is understanding that psychology at a dog's level is diluted. It's rudimentary, so we want to process that. And then let me go on to the last part, and I'm going to take the resulting interactions. So after I interact with each one of them or the ones that do want to play tug-of-war, I'll explain what happens and how to tell signs afterwards. Because what will happen is you will see physical signs of disappointment in my dogs, right? When I'm not playing with them anymore. These are the same physical signs of disappointment that you'll see in your dogs, and you'll recognize them now because you'll see the sentient structure and how every behavior correlates to next. This is the stuff I'm doing is not just for like children. Like I said, I've worked with multinational CEOs of multinationals, people, regular families. Every dog that I've worked with is extremely dangerous. That's my personal preference, and I do it to prove to the world that every single dog, no matter how dysfunctional or dangerous, can be down-trained and stabilized. So I'm gonna finish this off a bit here, and then I'll get back to the conclusion. So I'm going to try to get William to get engaged here. So I'm going to have William engaged. Hopefully you can see the lighting. If you can't hear what I'm saying, please just type in something and say you can't hear William. So I'm going to get William up here. William, come silly boy. Come silly boy. So I'm going to get him up here. I'm going to try to keep the environment as natural appearing as possible, because if it becomes too animated or too contrived, just kind of like when you're on the telephone talking to somebody, your dog comes running up because you're animated in voice. That's what's going to happen if I start making it fake. Then I don't get a real environment that's happening. So I haven't changed anything other than just, putting the lights up here from my bedroom. Hey, William, I'm going to try to get William up here. He's not. William, come on, up, please. Come on, William. William. So William's my small Dane. He's about 120 pounds, so he's kind of small. Hi, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. So one of the things I'm going to do is I'm always going to, you can see his heel erection, right? The ridging on the front of his back and towards the back end. So what that resides in, you're okay, silly boy, is a conscious rooted behavior, more of a mid-level conscious behavior where your dog is aware of the environment. So you'll see things where people say, oh, you know what? The dog is raising hackles so that they look bigger to the other dog. That's absolutely garbage, because this little bit, right? You can barely see this little quarter inch of raising is not going to make any dog or human think that the dog is more ferocious. It's not a physical appearance to ward off, because that's a deliberate behavior on a psychologically codependent, a conscious level. It's an aspect that is physiologically rooted in how your dog is processing what's going on and how it relates to their understanding of fear, their understanding of how they're in trouble, their understanding of what, William, you're okay, their understanding. There's Lincoln. So Lincoln looks at me, I will always acknowledge him, Lincoln, and then we have Minky here and Sammy. So then we create inclusion in the family pack. So your dog, William, wait please. So your dog understands what's going on. You see when I touch William, I'm keeping my hand perfectly flat, perfectly straight like that, like a shovel, and I'm not moving it. Even though the rest of my body is moving and everything else is moving, what I'm giving to William is stability. So I can feel his breathing pattern. I can feel his physicality, how he moves, right? So he's pushing against my arm. I can feel all these things. And if you ever watch Bruce Lee, Wing Chun, you understand how the movement works with the physicality by feeling the body motion, how your dog moves. I also can feel how he's breathing. I can feel if he's nervous. I can feel if there's any other physiological expressions of behavior as he looks towards me. So you see him looking towards me is because he wants me to engage with him. So the lull and tone of voice, he's preparing for me to interact with him. So we might not get the tugging down, but we'll get this part. William, so we're going to look him over here. Hi, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. Right, so we're going to get tail behavior happening. Watch this. Hi, silly boy. You're okay, William. You're okay, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. So I'm just going to touch him and place my hand on him at all times. This is what I do with extremely dangerous dogs, dogs that have dragged people into the shelter. You can look at the newspaper articles, all the videos that I do, you see that part. So I'm going to give him a hug. See how he's leaning towards me? So that's the shyness that he's exhibiting, right? So we want William to understand, and I will always give dogs a hug. So I'm going to keep my hand still, and I'll put my hand, same thing like before, on front of his chest, and my other hand on his side. And I do this when I'm outdoors, and I'll hold him here, and you'll watch him raise himself up. Hi, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. See him swallowing? The psychosomatic, his physiological expression of his inability, of dog's inabilities to process a complex emotional circumstance. So, silly boy, you're okay, William. So that's William asking for affection. He turned his head towards me again. When he feels comfortable, he turns away because he knows he's safe. William, you're okay, silly boy. And when I pull my head away, he will turn back towards me for a continued effect. And see how he's unable to hold himself up, changes body position, emotionally complex for William to understand. Silly boy. So I'm going to pull my head away, and I'm going to change my voice a bit. Hi, silly boy. You're okay, William. You're okay. William, hi, silly boy. You're okay. Hi, silly boy. So then we have the head turning here. Hi, silly, you're okay. And then when I stand up, he's going to continue to lean against me as an aspect of protection and codependency. This is why dogs get upset. This is why dogs get upset. It's because they don't feel that we're protecting them. If your dog thinks you're going to protect them, they're not going to go and attack somebody. If your dog thinks that you're going to protect them, they're not going to be afraid that you're going to beat them. It's the hugest, most important thing that you want to understand is the complexity of how that interaction happens when your dog is afraid. And we want to get to the destructuring the complexity from the point of, oh, my dog's afraid, to why is he afraid? Is he afraid of being attacked? Is he afraid of being abandoned? Is he afraid of being alone? You got to look at the fact that dogs have a rudimentary processing structure, like a child, so they cannot process the complexity of emotions. So when people say, you've heard these silly people out there that go, don't give your dog a hug, especially when they're trying to attack somebody or they're dangerous, you're completely saying to your dog, I can't protect you, I don't want to protect you, and you're going to have to deal with it yourself. What you then do is you narrow down the emotional envelope of comprehension and processing that your dog is able to experience in that circumstance. In the circumstance where your dog is afraid to go out there because there's another dog there, and normally your dog will be barking and trying to attack the other dog, and you say, oh, don't give me, I'm not giving you a hug, I'm going to push you. I'm going to push you into the danger. What do you think your dog is going to feel? That my human who's supposed to love, trust me, feed me, love me, hug me, pet me, walk me, is saying to me, go and fend for yourself with this other dangerous dog. The dog that you think is going to kill you, go and deal with it yourself. If you were a child and your father said, go out there and play and beat up the bullies, I'm just going to sit here and watch, you would never trust your father again. Same aspects when it comes to dealing with dogs. Same aspects when it comes to dealing with dogs without needing to use any treats or medication, nothing at all. I've risked my life to work with giant dogs. Mickey in the description, you can see his behavior is extremely skittish. He's a small dog to me, about 45, 50 pounds. His behavior is extremely dangerous, but just by addressing his psychological problems and letting him understand that he's inclusive, that he has an ego, self-esteem, and the ability to rely on a codependent relationship with his human, right? Because it's a cross-species cohabitation, to be able to rely on his human, on a stranger, on a different animal, right? He sees me, this crazy animal, right? And on top of that, for your dog, he looks up at you, she's seeing you, and you're 5 million times bigger than them. So why can you not protect me from this dangerous dog, but instead you're pushing me out into it? But you're 500 feet tall to me. And that's where the miscomprehension when it comes to dog training and psychological processing at the root level. You've got to compare the behavior of dogs the same as human beings, but at a diluted scale of perception and perspective. Understanding how dogs process things makes sense. So William, come please. So I'm gonna get William up here again. William, come William, come silly boy. Come William. William, here. Okay, so I'm gonna try to engage with him. Hi William, silly boy. Okay, we're not gonna do that. So I'm gonna try to get David out. So I'm gonna do the pretend knock on the door thing. Okay, so they're gonna bark, right? So William, I linked it. So see the expression of yawning in all my posts, yawning, cognitive dissipation, and the inability for the dog to process a level of emotional structure that they're not familiar with. So by being able to get Lincoln not to bark, he goes, okay, I'm not barking because I said stop barking. And he goes, okay, whatever, I don't know what that is, but I understand I'm not supposed to. Then I guide Lincoln and all the other dogs towards a point of comprehending this emotional structure. Because initially he's like, I gotta bark. And then he looks at me, and why does he bark? Because he wants to warn off the danger. He wants to let me know something's going on. So I give acknowledgement, and I finish the loop by saying thank you, by making acknowledgement that he's doing something to let me know there's danger. So his warning, I have to acknowledge. Same thing when it happens with you, right? If you're sleeping with your partner, right, and you're asleep, and your girlfriend or whatever wakes you, or boy, whatever, wakes you up and says, "I heard a noise downstairs." If your partner is laying there, go, "Oh, okay, go to sleep, honey." The first thing you're going to say is, "Something's wrong. I can't trust you. Go check that noise out." So if I don't let my dogs know that I'm protecting them, that I acknowledge that there's danger outside, they're still going to feel afraid. Don't listen to any of this other stuff about dogs jumping up on you and giving treats and all these aspects of it. You can't do that, because when you do something like that, you're eliciting and enabling predator instinct. The canine species fights to the death over food, right? It's Charles Darwin's theory. It's proven, evolution, the whole construct. When you're giving a dysfunctional dog food, you're literally eliciting and enabling predator instinct. And it does not matter what PhD, and I battled with a lot of them, doesn't matter what PhD, what master doctrine, or what anybody says about modern science and behaviorism dealing with that, it's absolutely impossible to denigrate or degrade the aspects of evolution. Food is that part. So why would I want to use food against a dog that is going to kill me? You think a dog is just going to stand there and say, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. I'm going to normally drag you from the shelter hallway into my shelter stall to kill me, or you're going to give me some food and I'm going to be okay." Has that ever happened? Have you ever had a dog? Sorry, not a dog. Have you ever seen a kid at a toy store having a temper tantrum? And you see the parent go, "Oh, well, let me buy you a new toy. Let me give you a new toy. Let me give you some treats." What will your kid do on the ground? Completely lose it. And every time you go to that toy store, absolutely the same kind of circumstance. Because the level of dysfunction is so extreme that the child and the dog cannot process that psychological level of processing, because it's an experience that they've never gone through. But if you talk to your child and you talk them down, if you talk to your dog and you talk them down, then you have a more of a stable structure, and then they understand that you're protecting them, keeping them safe, but they also understand that when they're having bad behavior, that you're not losing it on them. And it's easy to get really, really, really angry, especially if they try to attack another dog, and they're in your neighborhood, everything. People are staring at you. It's very, very tough, and I completely understand. I've been literally, and I'm 190 pounds. I've been literally picked up by a Great Dane and shaken, and the fear is unbelievable, and the feeling is like a mechanical, like you see those jackhammers on the road, where they're jackhammering. That's how it feels like. It feels that much power to be picked up and shaken, but then it has the organic movement. So it's not a mechanical movement as you're getting shaken. It's an actual organic movement, so it's random, and you can feel the control in the jawline. It's very scary. Okay, let me see if I can get David out so I can get past on the cue cards, start working about the tug-of-war. You're going to see David get upset. You're going to see David and Mickey get upset at each other. You're going to see interactions where the other dogs then find out in the act not of jealousy and envy, but of participatory behavior where they want to join in. Not envy, not jealousy, participatory as a familial structure. A lot of times the interpretation is incorrect, as in being, "Oh, well, the dog is envious." Incorrect. We got to look at the complex structure. We've got to look at the environment, the structure of it. We've got to pay attention in real time of what is happening at all times. So let me just see if I can get David out again. I'm going to do that knock on the door again. That might not work. I'm going to put that up here. Oh, yeah. Actually, I should show, hopefully David's going to run out. I'm going to show you the proper way to pick up your dog is to use your hand flat. If you have a small dog, pick them up by the bottom of the chest, front of the chest, pick them up this way, bounce, and rest their forelegs on your forearms, and then with your back end. So I'm just going to bump up Sammy, is hold her this way so that she's fully flat and complete. And when I put Sammy down on the ground, for those of you who have small dogs, never, ever drop your dog. Never. It's like that falling backwards exercise. So a lot of things happens when you put your dog down and you drop them or you toss them gently down, so to speak. What ends up happening is you then cause complete distrust in your dog towards you because your dog does not realize when you're going to let him go. Could you imagine having someone hold you above the ground and never letting you know? You remember when you were a kid? You didn't know when they were going to drop you. Imagine your dog has got to be able to protect themselves and catch themselves as you drop them without warning. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, okay, Sammy, I'm going to put you down. So I'm going to hold her down flat, shovel. There you go, silly girl. Hi, silly girl. And then I rest her down. So that way you don't see her pawing in frantic aspects. It's being cognizant of the behaviors and the fear that Sammy has of being dropped. And she has 2 legs, which means that there's also impact and compression on her spine issues, right? So we want to be cognizant of dogs with disabilities. When it comes to the aspects of putting your small dog down, put him down. This is Mr. Minky. If you watch the video of him, right, so nobody could touch him. Hi, silly boy, Minky. So nobody could touch him. You see the tail behavior? So we won't be getting to the tug-of-war now. Like I said, it's all full. We'll try it next week. You see the tail behavior? You see the musculature, the structure? See how it moves and stops? The behavior. Now, if I say his name, he'll start wagging and he'll stop. Minky. Right, so he's just trying to participate. These are cognitive behaviors that he's exhibiting. These are conscious behaviors, a reflective of conscious behavior of him thinking. Anticipation, front-loaded behaviors where he is thinking of what is happening. So if you watch your dog's tail behavior, up, middle, down, it's all indicative of the presence, somewhat relatable to the aspect of peeler erection and the hackles. So the behavior you see, it moves, sometimes it goes sideways, sometimes it goes this way. And if you watch behavior of dogs, you'll see it is almost consistent in all other animals, 4-legged animals like cougars that have that tail behavior. Because it's not tail set. If you've seen these little silly things that say, oh, tail set, the tail's up, is happy, the tail's there, so the tail's down, the dog is worried. It's not that simplistic. You got to get away from being tricked by the naive and the ignorant. These people who don't work with dangerous dogs, who turn the dangerous dogs down, like Dr. Ian Dunbar, turned down Tonka from Southampton Animal Hospital and, animal rescue shelter. They've got deep pockets in Southampton. So they turn them down because they don't understand what's going on with dogs. There's tail behavior. Watch your dog's tail as it moves back and forth and down, and you'll see them sometimes do a figure 8. Those aspects all relate to your dog's personality, yes, but also are reflective of physiological expressions of cognitive and psychological behavior. You got to think about these things. You got to be dog woke. You can't be living in a place where you're like, oh, dog's just stupid and dumb. You can see the expression of behavior because there's no way. You've seen my videos where I have all of them eating raw food, eating raw beef bones. There's David when he first came here, Griffin, 750 milligrams of trazodone. All these aspects can be addressed very simple. This is real-time aspect. Unfortunately, they're all sleepy. Great Danes are like this. So I'm going to try to get David out one more time. And if not, then we'll go on a different topic. And I'm going to end this up because I want to keep time frame. I want to keep myself on a structure. Okay, so David, hi, Minky, silly boy. Even when this part happens, they couldn't even touch him in LA. They couldn't even touch him. You're okay. You can see the skittishness, the behavior, and at all times, my hand, the stillness. See the tail behavior? Minky, hi, silly boy. Watch your tail behavior. Minky, you're okay. Minky, hi, silly boy. You're okay. Right? So the tail behavior, conscious behavior. I stop talking. He stops moving because he's engaged. And when I start talking to you guys, he starts animating, thinking I'm talking to him. And so his attempt now is to try to be animated with me. See his behavior? He's looking at me. He's watching me because this cognitive behavior. The tail is no longer moving. You can't see it, but he wants to be engaged. So I'm going to move back a bit here. Hi, silly boy. Minky, come here. So that's a recall aspect without using treats or medication. If he's already coming to me, passive training, I will say, Minky, come here. Minky's over there. I'll say the recall command. When he gets here, I'll say it again twice. If I see him coming and he hesitates, means he's thinking about it, I'll repeat it gently in the same tone of voice and rhythm and cadence as I did the first time. When I have to say the second time, I'll express it, and then he comes to me. Then I'll say it. A lot of mistakes people do is repeating themselves, saying the recall, they'll say their dog's name, Zevia, recall, or I'll use the recall word instead, recall, and your dog is like, okay, I was coming to you, but then you said recall again. So maybe I wasn't doing the right thing. So indecisiveness, I don't know if you want me to recall or not, because you repeated it, even though I said I showed you I was coming to do it to you non-verbally. and the miscommunication happens, and your dog goes, oh my gosh, my human being's not that smart. Can't read my physical body behavior. So we want to address those things there. There's Minky. Hi, silly boy. He knows his name. I always use dogs' names in context so they understand who they are as individuals. That means that when there's an issue, I can address them one-on-one, and they know who they are. Hi, Lincoln. Hi, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. See that? Skittishness, right? That behavior never leaves a dog. So you can imagine Lincoln at 160 pounds deemed extremely dangerous by animal control and then getting surrendered, and then me dealing with him, bringing him here into the home with other dogs that are extremely dangerous. Integration is not that difficult because you can do that with your friends when you're hanging out with 10 different people. You can deal with 10 different people 10 different ways. So let me try to see if we can do that. You see Minky in the TikTok videos on my TikTok? You see how he throws his arm? I also describe about that aspect when it comes to an introverted behavior that the dog has, this aspect of him attempting to engage with me, nonverbal communication. I'm talking very quickly to make shifts happen. I'm talking in a different tone so they don't hear my regular talking voice. Otherwise, they confuse themselves and they don't then understand the context of simple words that they're paying attention to. Silly boy, good boy, you're okay. All these words are basic words that we learned as a child. Growing up, you fell off your bike, you broke your leg, you got a compound fracture, your bone is sticking out your leg. Your dad comes running down, and you're like, ah! And what does your dad say? You're okay. And you're saying, I can't, Dad, my leg is sticking out. You're okay. It's a natural behavior on our end to self-soothe. We have the capacity to self-soothe. Your dogs have the capacity to understand a complexity of their ability to self-soothe. That's why I can get dangerous dogs to be all cohabitating. Let me go and see if I get David out. So hang on a sec, guys. David. I'm trying to get him out there. He's laying on my bed. The difficulty is I don't want to be contrived. I've got all the lights up. He's used to the lights up. Here he comes. Minky. So you hear the growling. Hi, silly boy, David. Hi, Minky. So you see this part here where Minky is now tracking David. So you hear the noise and the aggression. Hi, silly boy. See the tail behavior? The hackles are up. Minky's hackles are up at the same time. They're leaning against the body. You're okay, silly boy. Hands still at all times. I'm moving very quickly, talking very quickly. Hands always at all times. You're okay, David. Tone of voice changes. Minky's hackles are up. David, hi, silly boy. So we're going to leave some little aspects of here to play. See, now, David, come here, please. So we see Minky's trying to play, because normally what happens is David and I play. Here you go, silly boy. Okay, so now we have this aspect. There's going to be interaction, potential aspects of fighting and attacking each other here. We see this here part. So I'm here in the middle. Lincoln's right here. William's right here. Lincoln, you're okay. William's getting upset. You can hear the tone of his voice and the cadence of what he's saying, actually. So here we have this part. So David is almost 200 pounds. So we have to have a lot of strength to be able to interact with David so that we're not struggling back and forth and fighting on leash to get him to deal with stuff. So here we go. Here we go. Okay, here you go, silly boy. So we're going to do this aspect of play. There you go. Right? He's very strong. His neck is very thick. So, hello, silly boy. Do you see this behavior? So he's going to try to pull his weight down on me. Try to pull his weight down. You got to look at the nuanced behaviors that are happening with your dog at all times and what it means. Right? David, hi, silly boy, come on. So Lincoln's upset. So it's like, Lincoln, you're okay. And then we can still have interaction here at the same time. He's pulling very heavy down on my arm, as you can tell. And then there's Minky coming in, who will come in and sometimes bite David. Minky, you're okay. So we got to get this part upset to deal with, because Minky can't understand or process emotional environments that are complex. See his hackles? You can see the hackles. You see the tail position. Moves a little bit, and it'll move to his top, to his right side. I don't know if I'm flipped, but you see his right side move more so because of the processing that he has, and then it will default more to the left-hand side on any cognitive process of behavior. So we have this right here happen, right? So I'm going to be able to control David at 200 pounds. And there's Minky. So that it doesn't happen in the point where it does. So there's Mickey, no, please, right? So I'm going to make sure that Mickey doesn't attack David. And that way David knows that he's safe. But we have, again, this aspect of him pulling through. There you go. Hello, silly boy. Lincoln getting upset, controlling himself, yawning, cognitive dissipation. You won't see this with other trainers or behaviors, not because they are, not good. It's because of the concept and appreciation of psychological processes is what is lacking there. And when David pulls here, right, so we can see this behavior. See that I talk about fantastical sentient construct. See how he turns his head? Deliberate behavior, right? He's trying to pull me. You can see the whole weight here. See this whole weight? And then we want to pull him back here, right? You need a little bit of strength. And there's Minky. Minky, you're okay. You're okay, Minky. You see that? See his tail behavior to the right-hand side? Okay. So then it's probably flipped on your camera. Flip, so there you go. And then I'm putting my hand still at all times when it's so engaging with what David is doing, right? So we can see this behavior where he's pulling very hard, right? We want to have consistency of control instead of letting him think that we're all wild. See, this is wild, right? So we got that part. Let's fix the carpet, please. Go back, please. Go back. Right? Goes back. There we go. There's Minky. Doesn't know what to do, so he shakes his head. Yawns like Lincoln. William observes, because William's cognitive of what's proceeding. So we just change your arms, right? That part here, right? So then we're going to have to pull him forward with a bit of strength. And when we pull him forward, the firmness is always consistent. We're not trying to do this. We're not trying to do these gang parts. And, we're doing it in a mature communicative structure. So Lincoln, we'll get him to stop. Stop, please. Lincoln, stop barking. Lincoln, stop. So if it doesn't work, then I'll walk over and I'll touch him. Lincoln. You're okay. Okay. So we want to be able to demonstrate to our dogs that we can do multitasking as well, so that they understand that we're able to pay attention to the entire group when we're outdoors. When I'm walking the 3-in-1 retractable leashes, is the ability to understand and comprehend social structuring, be able to subroutine your brain so you can physically separate your behaviors between the two of them, like this part here with Minky, by having a stability at all times. So you see, he grabbed my hand just there, but he knows bite inhibition, whereas beforehand, he would have bitten somebody. So David has 16 bites on him from Indiana. That's according to his rescue. He's dragged people. He's done all these significant aspects of behavior that are quite dangerous. Okay. When we go here, watch the engagement, I let go of him, engagement. Right? And if I don't engage, he'll get frantic and start jumping and getting nippy. Inability to process a client, turn him down anything bites. Watch this. The inability to process on an emotional basis. He drops cogency. Wants me to engage by picking it up. Cogency. Cogency. Not the dog's stupid. Cogency is deliberate conscious construct, and the comprehension you won't see present unless you're paying attention. Oh, silly boy. All right, so now he's feeling insecure. So what does he do? He starts fidget. We want to recognize behavior in dogs, so that way when we see things happening where your dog is nervous or scared or insecure, and as opposed to thinking, oh, my dog's just nervous, fearful, whatever, we want to get into the root aspects of why he did that. For example, this kind of behavior. Hi, silly boy. Let me just see this other toy here. This one that he likes better. There you go, silly boy. All right, so we got Mickey behind me. Oh, silly boy. Hi, silly boy. Yes, Lincoln. So Lincoln gets upset now, right? Because you see the tail? He's being bothered. You're okay, Lincoln. Lincoln, you're okay. See, here's the tone. Here's the tone. It goes and down. Here's the tone. See that? That's the tone of voice you want to hear that he's doing, because then it expresses his own identification of what's happening with the environment. If you listen to it, you can hear him go, whoa, right? And that tone, again, is an expression here for the rest of us to understand that he's not pleased, obviously. The things that you think are actually happening with your dog actually are happening. Don't listen to the silly trainers. Don't listen to silly behaviors. Don't listen to people who can't down-train dangerous dogs. Don't listen to people who tell you things that your dog is not smart. Don't listen to people who tell you silly things like that. This behavior. This is David, who was on 750 milligrams of trazodone, 80 milligrams of Prozac for 2 years. Serotonin syndrome. See, so we're holding on to him, right? The premise, you see how he's coming with me? And I said, that's pulling 200 pounds here. So it's not to brag. It's the point of saying, do it casually. Do it firmly. If your dog's 40 pounds, 10 pounds, just do it firmly. You can pull them through. There's no problem whatsoever that goes on. Right? Hey, silly boy. So, hello, silly boy. Couldn't get close to him. Couldn't touch him. The behavior. This is codependent behavior right here because Mickey's there. See that? You see how the thing went towards Mickey? He saw Mickey. He immediately turned his head back. Concerned about being attacked. You want, hi, silly boy, you're okay. His head's like twice the size of mine. Hi, silly boy. But you want to be able to recognize behaviors when it happens, right? Because if you do, then your dog understands you're communicating with them. Your dog understands you know what's going on. So when you have a dangerous dog, he once went for my wrist there, but he stopped himself. Inhibition, you're okay, Mickey. Mickey's getting anxious. So the behavior is happening again. But we want Mickey to understand, right? We want to hold on to the weight here, right? We want to hold on as he pulls his entire weight down. So I don't fight him. I let him know it's okay. See that behavior? And he realizes not that I'm in control because I feed him, I walk him, I cuddle with him. He knows that it's fair play. Mickey's tail behavior, you see that? Then he understands it's fair play. Then he's got respect. Right? See, he doesn't pull. He stopped pulling because he knows I'm going to play with him. It's not the fact that I pulled 200 pounds. It's the fact that I said, we're just going to play and I'm not going to get upset with you. He's bitten me. My arms are raw from other dogs. But let him understand that his behavior, right, with this Mickey. Mickey, you're okay, right? So we see Mickey, and then we want to control his behavior. Right? See that hard jerk? This is the kind of dog who can pick up a human being. Right? You can see this behavior. And as I'm holding him firm here, and you see the structure of my body, the weight is put on. Mickey, move. See his foot on my. See his paw. Oh, you can't see. Hey, Mickey, move, please. You're okay, Mickey. Watch his foot go on my paw. Watch his paw go on my foot. Codependent behavior again to make sure that I'm not doing anything that's going to make him think we're in trouble. So we hold on to him, right? The sound. David, you're okay. So then what I'll do, let go. Watch. Let go. Listen, you can stop, please. Right? So now he's getting animated, jumpy, and all that stuff. Start nipping, you're okay. Right? Jumping. Okay. So I'm not ignoring him. Hi, David. Right? He jumps up. Hi, silly boy. Come on. Hello, silly boy. Mickey, no. So I'm going to make sure that Mickey doesn't attack him either. Here you go, silly boy. And I'll gently let him down. Mickey, stop. Because Mickey's going to come in and try to bite him. You're okay, David. Mickey, no. So you see, he's reluctant because he's been taught not to jump on people. So you can see the dysfunction happening in his behavior. He's been taught, he's been yelled at. You can see because when he came up with his arms, his forelegs, he brought them in somewhat tentatively and nervously, and he didn't want to fully extend. Mickey, you're okay. She's got scaredness. So we've got to hear what's going on at all times, right? Got to hear what's going on at all times. When David jumped up, he went like that a little bit because he was reluctant. He was afraid of getting in trouble, which means that some dumb, idiotic trainer who trains police canine dogs in the U.S. would knee him, would alpha him, would brutalize the innocence that David is exhibiting. Hi, Mickey. Hi, silly boy. You see that? See that quickness of behavior, of concern, and then the tail behavior, cognitive processing what's going on. And that's David drinking like a lot of, hi, silly boy. Hi, David. So he made eye contact with me. I'm always going to make acknowledgement to him. I tell everybody that I work with, always say your dog's name. Hi, David, you're okay, right? So we see Mickey. David doesn't want to come in because of Mickey. So we see that stress that's going in an interconnective aspect, right? Interdependency, all of it is at risk right now. So we're going to bring him in. So you're going to see things that you'll probably hear, Dr. Ian Dunbar say silly things. Mickey, you're okay. And we talk to him. We dispel the aspect. So if it does happen, we can interrupt. You're okay, Mickey. So David, you see that touching on the thing? Then Mickey realizes there's no issue. We're going to see Mickey's hand goes, David, you're okay. Then on my hand on his throat, I can feel whether or not he's going to growl. My hand is still. I'm not moving it. I can feel him growling or not. See that behavior? Hi, David, you're okay. Goes behind me, right? We can hear it. He's obviously quite big. You're okay, David. And then there's Mickey, super sensitive, super concerned. So David gets that to get me to engage. Takes up the toy to get me to engage. Watch. And then he brings him close to Minky to see whether or not I'm going to protect Minky and protect him. Codependency. Absolutely every single dog loves to be hugged. It's the fear of the trainer that doesn't understand a dog when they say, don't hug a scared dog. Doesn't matter if it's Cesar Milan, Zach, or whoever, these silly people out there that say things, don't give a dangerous dog. That's Sammy with Lincoln. That's people who don't understand dangerous dogs. Hugging is an aspect of trust. Right? So when you get engaged with David, he feels alone. You see that? I saw that. But then he's saying, you're okay, David. Right? So now he goes engaged and he's trusting me while Minky is around. You see that part here? Hi, silly boy, you're okay. So what I'm going to do when he starts getting nervous, you see how he's pushing against me now? So I'm going to give him a hug, and I'll give him a hug from a point of protection. So I'm going to give him a hug from this side where I'm blocking Minky. You're okay, silly boy. Okay? You're okay, Minky. You're okay. You're okay. Right? So you see how Minky draws him closer? Watch his legs become nervous as they start to shake out of nervousness. Right? That's insecurity, psychological insecurity. Minky, you're okay. Raise the tone of voice so David understands. Cognitive dissipation. You're okay. Excellent. And then the calmness that happens, and then Minky goes, excellent. See the calmness? See the tail behavior? Calmness. Look at that structure. See how the movement? It's the calmness. Whereas Minky is still animated. So when you come to Minky, see how nervous he is? So I'm always afraid of being bitten. Always. Hi, Minky. You're okay. You're okay. See the behavior? And then, of course, David is behind me, so Minky is further concerned, and then I have to deal with the interactive processing both dogs have. In point of, what does David perceive as? What does Minky perceive as? What do they collectively perceive as? So we see the behavior of Minky is. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Minky to jump up, right? So he's going to get animated. Hello, silly boy. So I'm going to give him affection. Minky. Hi, silly boy. So he's concerned about David here. Okay, so I'm going to get him to give affection. Hi, silly boy. You're okay. So we're going to have that concern. I'm going to try to bring him up over here. Hello, Minky. So this way he's not in harm's way. He's conscious of the behavior. And that's why sometimes you see two dogs walking. One walks into the room and the other dog starts to attack the other one suddenly. It's not that aspect of suddenly, especially if you know the two are going to fight. If you know they're going to fight, you got to say, hey, there's a 1% chance. I better pay attention 99% of the time. Oh, Minky, hi, silly boy. Hello, silly boy. Minky, you're okay, David, right? So then we make an acknowledgement because you saw how David tracked Minky as he went by. As Minky went by towards him, that close, because Minky didn't realize he was that close to David, he went by on his own. You can see Minky seeing David. You can see that connection of nonverbal communication. And as David tracked him as he went by. That's what you got to pay attention at 0.2 of a second processing time. Then you comprehend what is going on with the dogs. Sorry about this back end here. That's free of charge. Nobody has to pay any drink money. Hi, silly boy. There you go. See the hackles? That behavior. It's a psychological issue that is structured from where he was born, which is in the meat dog cage. You're okay, Minky. Hi, silly boy. Again, stillness of hands. See that behavior? And if I move it away, he'll turn his head towards me. Right? It's not magic. It's understanding sentient trait markers in dogs and recognizing that. These are AKA, also known as consciousness. And that's a problem, is that the legal system, and here's my soapbox, there, the legal system is not equipped to recognize dogs as functional sentient beings to have limited legal rights. But here we go again, proof of point here in this part, same with David on that part. David, you're okay. See how David tracks him? That way he knows he's okay. And then we go over here. Hi, silly boy, Minky. And then we have little William who's out here at the same time. And see that? I is same thing like bringing this toy. It is an aspect. Hello, David. Hi, silly boy. It's an aspect of codependency. William puts his paw out to be loved. And that's what we all look for, is love. That's my roundup here. So I'm going to finish her off. If you have any questions or anything, next week I will do the live about noticing traits of behavior. And I'll do it in here, noticing traits of behavior in your dog that you can recognize as consciousness of sentience. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye-bye. I'm going to end this off. And if you have any questions, just or comments, feel free to point it out, put it in there, or ask by email. Thank you.